is simple. I'm Dave Corm, your host. Today is Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. Today we're going to be talking about Who, not the group who I actually like a lot. We're going to be talking about the World Health Organization. Do you know who the World Health Organization is? Where they come from, how they got started, all that kind of fun stuff? Well, I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher, so I got to give you a little history, of course. And then we're going to talk about what's coming to a head here this month with the World Health Organization. They just had their 9th meeting in the last 2 years about, they call it the Pandemic Treaty. Ooh, sounds interesting, right? Pandemic Treaty. And what are we as the United States, and what is President Biden and maybe our Congress going to do with this whole treaty thing? What do you know about it? There's been a lot of stir coming from the right community that it's going to become something that can control our country based upon the World Health Organization's determination that there is a health risk or crisis, not only here in the United States, but somewhere in the world. And what is that going to entail? What is it going to entail? Closing down our businesses, closing down our schools again, closing down our churches, closing down everything except those things which are most important, like marijuana dispensaries and liquor stores, like the last one. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And I guess we're going to just kind of jump right into it because I got so much stuff. So much stuff on this one. And you have a couple left-wing websites, newspapers, debunking it. You know, there's a website out there called, I don't remember what it's called, Speaks or Spokes or something like that. And that's very far left. And anything the right has to say is automatically, or Snopes, I think is what it's called, S-N-O-P-E-S, Snopes. Anything the right has to say is just totally disregarded and debunked by Snopes, and they come up with all these special things that show how the right is such a liar. Well, this time it was, I think, USA Today. It's not a conservative newspaper. It's more of like the junk left, trash left newspaper. New York Times, all the TV channels, ABC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC. It comes from the same roots as all those organizations do. So it's not what I would really, okay, I'll read your story. I'll take what you say to me, but I'm going to definitely go dig somewhere else and see what's out there, is my standing with any of these newspapers, pretty much, even left side newspapers, or right side newspapers, sorry. You gotta really dig in and find stuff that's going on. And what I like to use for a reference is not always what they on the right or they on the left say, but I like to use past history, right? History that shows and supports somebody says something. What actually happened? What actually happened? So we're going to debunk some of those things today too. So without further ado, let's throw this up on the screen. What do I want to throw up? I'm going to throw up my sheet here real quick, and I'm just going to give it to you like this for a second so that I can kind of go through it and look at it. So the United Nations was created on October 24th, 1945. It has 5 basic founding members, which are the original, what would you call it? The voting members that actually determine what the United Nations does. There are 10 others on a rotating purpose that are on the main board for which the United Nations makes decisions. Unfortunately, those 10 really don't, they have a say, but they have no vote. The only ones that really have a vote are USA, UK, United Kingdom, France, China, and the Soviet Union, which is now Russia. They were the founding members. The HQ is in New York City here. Let's talk about the United Nations funding. I don't know what you know about the United Nations. I don't know about if you know anything about its history. I don't know if you know what it does in the world or how it operates. You really need to check it out because it's a governmental agency, been around for since 1945, so 80 years, 90 years. It's with all governmental things, bureaucrats, it kind of corrupts in above and amongst itself. If you look at our government here in the United States, it took it 250 years roughly to really start to disintegrate, but you can see today where it is disintegrating at a rapid pace. If you're paying any attention to what's going on around you, not just reading stuff on your cell phone and living your life, going to work, coming home, eating, drinking, sleeping, and going back to work. Hopefully you take some time to see what's going on around you a little bit, because it will determine where I am, where you are, and where our children and grandchildren are going to be in the future. So why we all like to push that garbage away to the side, you really can't anymore. Things are happening at light speed today. You really have to pay attention to what's going on around you. You have to somewhat participate. You somewhat have to have a voice. Otherwise, the minority, it's a democracy, right? The democracy, what the left always says, this is a democracy. No, it's not. It's a republic. But at the same time, even in a republic, we have the right to vote to put people in to represent us. Saved for another day. We'll show you how that's not working too well in the future. But today we're talking about the pandemic, the WHO's World Health Organization pandemic treaty. So I have this beautiful chart graph I'm going to bring up and show to you. And I'd like to also bring my picture up. How about that? But that's not it. So I need to switch to here and go to there. So you have this beautiful chart right here of how the United Nations, or who funds the United Nations. United Nations budget contributions by country, gross contribution, and percentage share. So here we are of this ball, one-sided ball. You can see that the United States is the vast majority of what runs and operates the United Nations. Now, I'm not saying we should get our way because it is the United Nations, but why does the United States, even though the headquarters is in New York City, why do we have to support and provide almost 1/4 of the whole effort of the United Nations? And the United Nations has not really been on our side for the last 30 plus years. In my opinion, I think you need to do your own investigation and look at it, how corrupt it is. Where are all the funds? Where are all the things going to run this organization and this thing? Look at the people that are in specific areas. Where are their backgrounds? Who are they? What countries do they come from? Not that we need to, I mean, the United Nations is to bring all countries of the world together to a place where there's a conversation, an understanding, to kind of find the middle ground somewhere in the center there. But if you look at a lot of the people that are running specific areas within the United Nations, you would be surprised to find that they are, they don't really care about the people of the world. They're in it for themselves and to make a profit, just like a lot of government officials here in the United States, elected and non-elected. You can see China up here is second on the right there. You can see Japan kind of falls into third place. Other countries, all the other ones that aren't listed here, Germany kind of falls into the next hole there. And then you got looks like the UK barely ahead of France, Italy, Spain, and then you have all the other countries that are in Europe. And you can see by the little scale on the right there, the colors kind of distributes it and kind of breaks it into sections by color. So anyway, you can see all the costs and everything there. It's ridiculous that the United States spends 22% of them, or provides 22% plus the land, the building, and probably a lot of the the services there to make sure the United States or the United Nations run, security and stuff like that. It's very expensive, especially in New York City, right? With that said, we're going to pop back to my little sheet here and look at that, maybe. And we're going to work our way down. And you can see a little bit about the WHO, the World Health Organization, was formulated by within the United Nations to provide basic services, medical and health services across the world, and trying to make health more of an open mechanism for countries that have poor health systems to receive and get health. So in that aspect, it's been somewhat good. Not the money, it doesn't matter as long as it goes into a governmental type agency. Kind of just evaporates in some meaning, manner, or way. So not to say that they've been financially good with their money. You can just look at our federal government. They don't know where all the money's going either. It gets siphoned off here, siphoned off there, in all different directions. But the WHO is an affiliation with the United States or the United Nations. How is the WHO Director General chosen? The current one that's in place now was elected or chosen for his first term on July 17th, 2017. He had a 5-year term. So basically in 2022, the middle of the pandemic, they renewed him back. His name is, I'm going to find that for you. If we come down here, right here, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus. Sorry if I killed his name. He's Ethiopian. Not that that means anything in general. If you don't know where Ethiopia is, it's kind of like on the Horn of Africa. Kind of sits on the upper east side of Africa, kind of next to Somalia, where there's been years and years of civil war in that area. It kind of sits on an area that is very opportunistic for getting materials and trade and things out of Africa. You know, we talked a couple weeks ago about the Democratic Republic of Congo and how they get minerals and so forth from there, China and other countries, minerals there for building batteries, cobalt. So Ethiopia is a main kind of hub to move a lot of materials to ships and the coast in Africa is basically what it is. So in and of itself, it does have some mineral riches. I think it has some oil and so forth. But for the most part, it's basically a distribution type center, you know. We have our Walmarts and we have our Amazon distribution centers, kind of what Ethiopia is to some aspect. Is the same. So I want to backtrack up here a little bit because I probably jumped a little ahead of where I wanted to go originally. But with everything, you talk about the World Health Organization and this pandemic treaty. One of the big issues is most treaties that are made, like in the United Nations or some international organization, which we then sign and become like a part of, generally has to come back to the United States. It goes before Congress, who looks at it deeply, and then they vote yay or nay on it. If they say yay, it goes to the president. If they say no, it kind of usually dies in Congress. So we may follow that treaty to some aspect, but it never becomes part of our real law here in the United States. So it's kind of chosen, the decision kind of lays on the president for the most part of what he wants to follow as the administrator, the guy that runs the country, the governmental agencies and so forth. He's kind of the one that chooses whether he's going to follow any of these rules and regulations that come from these foreign treaties and so forth. If Congress does not pass it, Biden in and of himself can do an executive order saying he's going to follow or the steps or give the treaty much more weight than what it normally would have on the United States to follow and so forth. So as I was doing some research, of course, I found this little website right here, USA Today, fact check, false claim about Biden, WHO, and U.S. sovereignty. So we're gonna jump to that real quick, and I think I have it on my other screen. So I'll pop that back up and come here. That's not it. That's not it. That's it. Come here, and we're going to I was going to pop it up. All right, so I'm going to play this a little bit. You can see right here, if you read the claim, the lady up here, I'm going to play the video. It runs 3 minutes. She's talking about how government, she talks about the medical professionals around the world. You can see the big World Health Organization sign behind her. How the World Health Organization, maybe the American Medical Association in the United States, which is kind of like the World Health Organization equivalent in the United States, how many doctors and so forth throughout the country through that last pandemic have lost trust by the citizens of the country. And she's just going to talk and talk and talk about rebuilding trust of the public. It's very important that that happens for them and the World Health Organization, in that by rebuilding that trust, they get more and more control, because people start to believe what they are being told, especially if they're told over and over and over and over again. And when they tie certain things to children, which she's going to talk about a lot, tying it to children, us grandparents, want the best for our children in this country, and therefore we become easily misguided because we don't do our due diligence on our own. We just take their opinion or their word at face value. That why would they lie to us? Why would they not want to help us? Why would they want to hurt our children? We as Americans always think on the good side, that they're always there for us, and that's not always true. You need to look at the big picture of what's going on around you. And after we watch this, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. We'll follow along, and then we'll talk about the opposite side. Why this organization, USA Today, and the World Health Organization, and her fact check false claim about Biden, WHO, and U.S. sovereignty. They're basically, when you get to the bottom, say it's a lie. The World Health Organization is not going to have any control over the United States or anything here as far as health, and it's all up to our government to decide, or to do what they do. In that respect, it's somewhat true, but it depends who's the president, and did they sign the executive order accepting the treaty, and therefore they're forced to follow the treaty. And if Biden signs that, which he is going to sign it when it comes, it gives them, that party, just as if it was Trump or any other person, if they follow that direction, gives that president additional authority based upon the World Health Organization with this treaty to take action against citizens. If you really love freedom and that type of thing, then this is not good. So let's watch the video. I'm jumping ahead. Let's watch it and go from there.
As you've highlighted, trust has never been at such a low state. And it's not just with public health officials, it's with politicians, it's with business leaders, it's across the board. And as Jawad said, it's about communities, it's about people. It's not about talking to, it's about talking with, it's about listening. And it's about having people be front and center to what needs to be done, because it's about them and their loved ones. It's been quite, I mean, this is the crux of communication. And as part of a pandemic response, you can have the best guidance, you can have, clear things to say, but if you don't have the trust of the people to be able to enable or implement that, then it won't be used. And I think it's going to take a long time for us to rebuild that trust. Part of it is in everyday language that we use. One of the biggest challenges I see is the conflicting messages using the same data and people blaming the science. We understand, even recently, most recently, There are many policy changes that have been made because of Omicron, because of the sheer number of cases that have occurred in such a short period of time. And countries have had to take some decisions to change policies for isolation, for quarantine, for example. But many have come out and said, well, the data changed, the science changed, and therefore our policy changed. When in fact, what changed was really the need to balance having people quarantine and isolate so that they didn't pass the virus on, but at the same time keeping businesses open. And so the science didn't change, the data didn't change, but the policy decision was modified to take into account risks and benefits. And if many leaders had come out and said, and this is not directed at only one country, because many countries have done this, if they had come out and said, look, we understand that this is the risk, but we have to take this decision because we need to keep our businesses open. I think the public would really appreciate that and understand being told that these are the reasons, these are why these decisions are being made. But I think it's going to take time for trust to be rebuilt, and that can happen. But we need to look at the leaders and the different types of leaders that we have in our communities, the religious leaders, the business leaders. All of us are leaders. I think one of the things we try to speak about every time we speak is that every single person out there is a leader in their own right. And they need to have the information to be able to take those decisions to keep them and their loved ones safe. But trust is it at an all-time low? We as an organization try to speak as transparently as we can about why we're saying this, where the information comes from. Sometimes it takes us a little bit longer to get that guidance out because it's based on science, and we have a transparent process by which that is released. But it's about people, it's about communities. And I think we have a lot to do at a global level, at a national level, at sub-national levels to rebuild the trust of our people.
So there you have it. The trust. They've broken it. It's not just the health, but it's the news agencies and so forth that continue to press and push disinformation to all of us. And what do you do about that? You hear it from one station, you hear it from the same station, you hear it from the same another station, and it's just the same all over the place. But in reality, it's like, I don't believe anything they're saying anymore. And she's trying to ask for forgiveness right there, but at the same time, it's fool me once, shame on you; fool me twice, shame on me. And that's where we are right now in society. We feel like we've trusted our government, we've trusted our health organizations, and the trust is just gone. It's just gone. Not something that we did as citizens. It's the government that has lied and pushed and pulled and forced us to do things that we didn't want to do. And in a free country, that's pretty hard to do against the citizenry that has been free for a long time. Other countries are the same, but they get pressed down by either their fake law enforcement, which is nothing other than the arm of the government, to attack and stop what we call our First Amendment right of free speech. They use it as a way to stop the speech so it doesn't spread more, so that more people join I guess you would call it the revolution, right? Kind of like where we're heading in this country to some aspect. Let me bring back this page, and let's look at this real quick again. Actually, you know what? I didn't want to go back there. I wanted to go back here. Let's go there. I have to bring it up so I can see it. And let's scroll through here a little bit. Claim that President Biden has given the World Health Organization control over U.S. healthcare and national sovereignty. So as you go through and you read this, they make a pretty good comment and statement about how it's not going to basically give sovereignty to the World Health Organization. But as I read through this and I read through it and I said, oh, it's looking pretty good. I somewhat agree. Yeah, I don't think they're really bad people out there. They're trying to help us citizens and take care of us and make sure we're not getting hurt and so forth. And look at, they have all their nice fact check choice sources here. Again, you need to go and look at who these people are. Not all of them. I'd say if you looked at maybe 4 or 5 of these, you would see who and what they are. Are they extreme leftists? They're using their own organization right here, the USA Today, for their fact check. I don't think you should do that. It doesn't make good sense. And then there's two more down here, USA Today's. So they're using their own people. They're all like-minded. It's not good. So look at it yourself and read through the mess. That's pretty much the end of it. So they say the fact check, it's a lie, is basically what they say in this story. Well, let's pop over here to this one and look at this. So we looked at his fact check, USA Today, fact check. We just looked at that link is what we were just looking at. Here's some quotes from our own government, our President Obama. You can keep your doctor and your health plan. Was that a lie? Fact check. Yes, lie. Biden, we're hiring 80,000 IRS agents to go after the rich. Knowing today that all those IRS agents are going after the middle class, was that a lie or truth? Lie. Check. Dr. Fauci, masks don't work. And this was very early. I think it was in like January or February of when the COVID hit the United States. Masks don't work. And if you listen to him, I think on year 2 or somewhere around there, 2022, he says, now it's better to wear 3 at one time because they don't work. Wear 3 masks. And he, in his little speech, he had basically 2 or 3 masks on. What? Lie. And the fact is, unless you have an N95 mask, masks don't work. They don't. Because the virus is so minuscule, so small, even though you can't see through that little meshy mask that you're wearing, the virus still goes through it. It goes through because it's that small. And then you're touching everything, and then you're touching your mask. So not only are you getting the virus, but you're getting all these other things on your mask from all these surfaces. You take it off and put it on a table. It's picking up some kind of bugs or virus or something that's on the counter. You touch something and then you touch your mask to kind of readjust it. You just took whatever was on that door handle, on that telephone, on that table, or that switch or that door handle, and you just put it on your mask. Now you're breathing it in. People don't think about this stuff. Biden, the vaccine is safe. If it is, why is it even called a vaccine? Because people who got the shot were still getting sick. It's not a vaccine. It's a therapy. Why have thousands become ill or have died? Guys are dying from myocarditis and pericarditis. Women, through a study that I found on the internet here, I should have probably tagged the resource, but I didn't. 25%, so roughly about, 75 out of 545 females that were put through this test had irregular menstruation cycles, and bleeding started between 0 and 7 days after the shot, and usually within 30 days. So at least 25% of women were having issues, menstrual cycle issues based on that shot. It's an RNA shot. It goes in and it manipulates the things that make you who you are genetically inside. So it's taking your RNA structure, your DNA and kind of RNA, and it's restructuring it. It's changing it. It's making, even though you look the same on the outside, it's changing it on the inside. What is that? What might that possibility have towards some type of future cancer that's going to show up because you've taken this shot? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a doctor, so don't take me up on that one. But there's a possibility. And if you really look out there, you'll see that a lot of people have had issues with the COVID shot, and sometimes it has gotten progressively worse as they took the booster shots going forward. How many shot commercials have you really seen on the TV in the last 5-6 months? I don't think I've seen any. 0. But they were pushing them for a while there, almost for 3 years. Okay, let's look at this one. So, KMTV News Idaho. Idaho joins the coalition opposing the drastic expansion of the World Health Organization authority. So, we look at USA Today, obviously a left newspaper, saying that this is fake. this authority that's coming from the World Health Organization is going to have over the United States. And then you see a state and states like Idaho and other states. I don't have this open, so I'm going to pop it open for us. Maybe. Pop it open. So, Idaho and other states filing legal claims. It's not even quite there yet to file anything, but they're taking preventative action up front. Why would state governments? USA, it says it's fake. It's fake. But state governments are taking action to protect your rights and your citizens, of their citizens. Why would they do that if it's fake? It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. Let's look at the next one. I think I have that one too. Oh, what happened? Didn't go back to my. I probably have to pop this up. Bam. Did that work? I think so. Yeah. Bam. I want to be in the picture. Just the news. Just the news. Senator Johnson recent proposals would give World Health Organization more power to threaten U.S. sovereignty. So here you go. Why is Congress, people in Congress, why are they taking action in and of the same way? It didn't pop open. Maybe it's going to pop open. Let's try it again. There we go. Just news. So, again, here we are. The federal government, the senators and so forth, are taking action about the same exact thing. If it was fake, would they be taking action? Would they? They wouldn't. So therefore, there has to be some reality that it is a possibility that the World Health Organization is going to, through the Biden's administration and President Biden, is going to use the World Health Organization, possibly. Here you go. Here's a scenario for this coming election. Biden's losing really big in the polls. All of a sudden, the WHO comes out with a quarantine issue of some sort. All of a sudden, America's locked down because Joe Biden feels really worried about all of us Americans, and we have to lock us down because there's some kind of amazing virus coming our way eventually, sometime in the future. You're saying this guy is nuts. I am nuts. Why am I watching him? Because it's not so nuts. They're trying to put President Trump in jail. If you've paid any attention to the trial in New York, any attention, Michael Cohen, the supposed second most, maybe the first most important witness on the DA's list, committed to stealing $60,000 from Trump. From what I understand, that is a Class C felony, and what Trump is being charged with is a Class E. It's basically a misdemeanor. And why would the prosecution go after Trump on a far lesser felony than a guy who just swiped $60,000 and said it in a court of law under oath? Why? It just doesn't make sense. So it's a scam. This whole trial is a scam. And they're going after Trump. If they can go after Trump, don't you think they can go after any other person in this country with fake and made up evidence? Of course they can, and they will. And Biden doesn't want Trump to win. It goes back to Saul Alinsky and the rules for radicals. Anything is fair as long as it achieves the objective of the Democrats, which they're really communists, are staying in power. That's it. That's their goal. And how they get there, they don't care. If Trump wins the election, per se, in all of our minds, everybody, I hate to say it, but I've been riding a lot of Ubers and stuff through town here, and I normally thought Uber drivers and most people in Las Vegas were Democrats, I hate to say it, hate to say it, are on the left, maybe not the far left, maybe a center left, like I'm kind of center right. Um, but everybody, I have not talked to one person in probably the last month that says they're voting for Biden. Not one, not one. It's amazing. Everybody here is voting for Trump that I've talked to. So with that in your mind and in our minds, going to the polls, and if Trump does not win the election, and yet we've all talked to each other here in our neighborhoods and our city here in town, and nobody voted for Biden, Biden wins the election, is that not a scam? Is the election not stolen? But the Democrats think it's okay because the paper count, the computer count, that's the real vote, not the people out here in the neighborhoods. So get any ballots any way you can to the election center and count them. Not only once, but twice, but 3 times to make it so much better for the left. I'm not saying they're doing that here in this county of Clark or anywhere, but all you got to do is do your own investigation. All right. Let's go back to my sheet because it's very important. Is it? Is it really? All right. I got to pull this out of the way so I can see it. All right. So there you have it. You have the USA Today saying it's fake. This World Health Organization pandemic treaty, possibly controlling the U.S. government and how we live our lives here in the U.S. And that's not true. It's fake. Otherwise, the state governments and our own senators in the federal government would not be taking proactive action to slow it and stop it. They wouldn't. It would just flow right through and nobody would care. All right, so this is the gentleman right here. I don't know if you can call him that, but this is the gentleman. Oh, you can't really see him because my head's in the way. I'm going to scroll him down a little bit. So there you go. Yeah, I can see it a little bit. So that is the general counsel or the general counsel of the World Health Organization. Everybody just calls him Tedros because his last name is really hard. Gebrevicius or something. Like I said, he is from Ethiopia. Not a big deal. I don't care where these people are from. I just want to know if they're going to do a good job. That's all I really care about. So if you go to I think this is Wikipedia right here. You can go look at his background. Actually, that's BBC. So you could go look at his information here. Here's the Wikipedia. I think I got this from Wikipedia. I could be wrong. He's an Ethiopian at the heart of coronavirus. Tedros, head of the World Health Organization, who is something of a superstar these days, like Dr. Fauci. That should be your first red flag that pops up in your head. Like Dr. Fauci. Did you know Dr. Fauci before 2020? I've never heard of the guy. And then he became some superstar, right? Was he running the country or was Biden or Trump running the country? I think I'd have to vote for Fauci on that one. He was locking us all down. Was he the sole one? Was he getting his direction from somebody else? Probably, yeah. Maybe the CIA or the FBI or, yeah, you know what? You need to follow our instructions. Otherwise, we're going to start an investigation and put you in jail, too, for some kind of fraud for election violation. Even election violation. Like Trump, right? The entire planet hangs on his every word, as he explains during the regular press conferences at the World Health Organization's in Geneva. Just how widespread the Corona-19 pandemic now is and what contributions our countries must do to defeat it. He criticized by Trump after his trip to Beijing. Dr. Tedros in China had set up a new standard for outbreak control. A few days later, he and the world leaders meeting in Munich Security Conference in China's actions had bought the world time. Wrong. In fact, it expedited it, sped it up. Such comments sit unnecessarily with the knowledge that China arrested health workers who first raised the alarm about the outbreak. So, yeah, you want to quiet people down? Not free speech in China. Let's lock these people up. One, I remember, I forget her name. She was here in the United States maybe a couple months after, and she said, absolutely, I was there. It came out of the Wuhan virus lab. I know it did. I was there when it happened. Hello? Hello, what? You were there? Yeah, I was there. I knew what was going on. I knew it came out of there, and nobody believed her. China put I don't think I'm wrong, but put kind of like a warrant on her for basically to kill her, I guess. She's still alive as far as I know, but anyway, I don't know where she's at. She's probably still in the United States. If I find out her name, I might put that on. No, why would I do that? They'll just go after her again. So you can read more about that right here at that link. So what is China? What does China have to do with the World Health Organization? And, there was a thing in the early 2000s, I think it was 2003, SARS, which is another virus that came out of China. Came out of China. So China is creating these viruses that's killing the world, and they're doing it by choice. Have you heard of fentanyl, the drug that's coming into the United States and killing hundreds of thousands of Americans every year? Have you heard of it? Guess where that's coming from? China. Yes, they are making all the precursor parts for that, shipping it to, I heard, Argentina, which is kind of weird. That's probably going to stop because the new, I'm not sure if he's a president or a prime minister in Argentina, is very far right, which is a good thing for them because they're probably going to finally, after years and years of being in suffrage like we are doing right now, their economy is turning around and they might actually become the leader of South America. Yay for them. Yay for freedom, right? But fentanyl from China coming into Mexico, they're mixing it with their stuff and bringing it across our border. China is killing Americans. What's Biden doing? He's just letting them cross. He's just letting the fentanyl come in. He's just letting Americans die. That's the guy you think is going to stop the World Health Organization? Or is he going to use that for his benefit? Use common sense. Use common sense, people. And you'll be a lot better for your life will be a lot better if you use that. What does China want in Ethiopia? They're spending a lot of money in Africa. They have control of most of the cobalt in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which I talked about a couple weeks ago. They're buying up all the rare materials or rights to the rare materials all over the world. And they're controlling the lithium in South America, in the little triangle I talked about between Chile, is it Argentina, and what was the other country? Bolivia, I think it was, in that little area. So they have a control of a majority of the lithium in the world. They have a control of a majority of the cobalt in the world. They need a way to transport that out. So it's going through Ethiopia to the coastline and they're shipping it out. There you go. So what does Tedros, an Ethiopian, have to do with any of that? On the surface, nothing. But you have to kind of assume, especially with the actions that he took with China at the start of COVID-19, allowing them to continue what they were doing, disbelieving and believing that it didn't start there. It started in a back cave somewhere or in the fish market or when we know for a fact today, 100%, that it started in the Wuhan laboratory in China, which the United States, through Dr. Fauci, was providing money. Do these things kind of like just click together? Can you see a conspiracy starting here? How Biden and Fauci and the United States government and the Chinese government are working hand in hand together to destroy America? Can you see it? To allow China to control the world. Can you see it? How can you not? Adding all these things together. If it's just one little thing, it's like, okay. But when you add this and you add this and you add that continent and you add this continent and you add what's going on here and there, it's the same as here and there and everywhere else. It's boom, there you go. It's common sense, folks. And because Russia is now an affiliate with China, the United States is being basically forced out and kicked out of Africa. Good or bad, I don't know. We had a much bigger footprint than I ever really understood there. But with all the rare materials and everything there, it's a vital interest of the United States and the free world, not just us, the UK, everyone in Europe and so forth, to look out for what's happening. The Mexican government is turning communist, believe it or not. Their supposed, from what I heard, their supposed new president, or whatever they call it down there, she's an extreme leftist. And so you don't think Mexico is going to be moving more closer to Russia and to China than closer to the United States? And they're right on our border. It's like Mexico is like Russia's Ukraine. I mean, to us, it's the same thing. All right. If you go to some of these articles, I've left them up here quite a bit. You can look at it and also get information about what sites to go look at. You can see what Russia's doing. You can see what China. Council on Foreign Relations, the Center for Strategic Studies, primarily like they're military type based organizations. They're seeing what's going on in strategic studies, looking to see strategically what's going on in Africa. I would recommend taking some time, if you haven't, to go look at this stuff. You're just going to get shocked, and how many things in the world are happening because of China, Russia, and Iran, and they're bringing on South Africa, Brazil, and now Mexico into their sideline. It's scary, people. You better wake up. All right, the WHO and China, dereliction of duty. So the WHO's weak response to China's mishandling of the COVID-19 outbreak has laundered China's image at the extreme expense of the WHO's credibility. So Tedros going and having a conversation with the Chinese government and believing what they told him. Remember, he is Ethiopian. China is putting a lot of money into Ethiopia. He was in the Ethiopian government. He has a lot at stake. If he shuns China, China pulls up and moves out. They cut back. They stop doing stuff. Hurts his people. He's not where he's going to be in the future. Can you see how these things are intertwined and tied together? They are. On January 28th, Tedros met with the Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing. Say that 10 times fast. Following the meeting, Tedros commented on commended China for setting a new standard for outbreak control and praised the country's top leadership for its openness to sharing information with the WHO and other countries. Here's a link. You're not going to believe this. This stuff is on United Nations and the WHO website. It is. It's unbelievable what they put on that website. Statement on the first meeting in the International Health Regulations Emergency Committee regarding the outbreak of the coronavirus. So you can see all this stuff, the conclusions and advice. On January 22nd, the members of the Emergency Committee expressed divergent views on whether this event constitutes a PHEIC or not. Really? What is pandemic of health something around the world? I'm pretty sure is what that stands for, something like that. The committee stands ready to reconvene in approximately 10 to 9 days in time and or earlier should the director deem necessary. So this is back when they had their first meeting about what they were going to do with the coronavirus. Tedros goes to China. He thinks, oh, they're so great. They're doing taking all these steps and measures to protect everything and everyone in the whole world. We're going to let them keep doing what they're doing and so forth and so on. You can see by the result that didn't work too well. He went back a second time and they had this meeting, and so the whole thing was just a mess. It's a governmental mess is what it is. Governments supporting a communist government that had SARS in 2003, that went through the same exact thing, who the World Health Organization did nothing. They should have created this whole thing, pandemic thing, back in 2003 and not waited till 2020. And they didn't. So government failure again, the World Health Organization, the United Nations, failure, failure, failure. And they failed this time. And they're going to fail again in the next one. They are a government agency. All they do is fail. That's what they do. The WHO and China's dereliction of duty, the WHO's weak response to China's mishandling of COVID-19 outbreak has laundered China's image as the expense of the WHO's credibility. That's what we watched the video, how that lady is saying, we got to earn the trust back. We got to get the trust. They distrust us. Yeah, because you botched and you failed in the whole thing. You botched it. Here's a link to that. The time is right for clear leadership from the WHO based on science, not politics. Politics! Again, Tedros, Ethiopian, China using Ethiopia to go in and bring their materials out. Bam. There's the connection, folks. BBC, last updated on 2003. So this is talking about the SARS syndrome. So you can actually, I put a link here. You can go see for yourself what was done. The World Health Organization didn't learn from that, and they failed. And SARS got out and spread around the world. Not as bad as the COVID-19 pandemic, but it's based upon the same virus, believe it or not. It's a modified virus. China was enhancing the virus to kill people. Why would you do that in the first place? Just in case, so we can find a medicine to prevent it from killing people if it should happen to create itself in the future? Is that backwards thinking? It could be. What makes you think it's going to develop to the point where it's going to be a deadly virus to humans? Because it was originally a chicken virus, I believe, is what it was. Oh no, it was a bat virus. It was a bat virus that got out and so forth. China Daily, newly elected WHO chief reiterates one China principle. So here Tedros is talking about the unification of Taiwan with China. Why should he care? What health things does that have to do with the World Health Organization? Nothing. Can you see the connection? Can you see the connection there? You're doing a favor for me and my country. I'm going to do you a favor here and say this for you, China, communist China. These little pieces of the puzzle just kind of like fit right together. And you guys got to see it. I mean, I can't spit it out anymore for you. This took some time to create. I wanted to do something like this last week, but it took me 2 weeks to do this. New York Times, China silences critics over deadly virus outbreak. What? This is where they locked up everybody. I told you a few minutes ago, this is where they went and locked up everybody that had the information. There you go. In fact, I think I just saw a story this last week that talked about China is now starting to release all the people they had locked up to keep them from speaking about the COVID-19 virus. Because the cat's out of the bag. We already know it started in Wuhan for 100% sure. And it started in their laboratory. And it got out. And how did it get out? That's interesting. How did it get out? And was it deliberate? You got to think about the timing of the American election, working with the Democratic Party to some aspect. I know this is like going way out there. Way out there now. But there is something possibly to that. You remember Biden and his son, Hunter, are working with the Chinese. Not that they had anything to do with the COVID-19, but China hits all these points. They'll create different legs of different things, hoping that one or two legs take effect and work. I watched a movie last night. I can't remember what it was, but there was a ship that came up on the beach, and it was basically the start of a war against the United States, where the West Coast, I think, was being attacked covertly by the North Koreans and the Chinese, and the East Coast was being attacked by, they didn't really say, but some kind of Arab nation, because they were being leaflets dropped from the sky. And in the East, there was a saying that on the leaflet it said "Death to America." So anyway, I had really thought about it. I went and saw the movie Civil War a few weeks ago, and this one might have actually been better. And it is true that could be. They want the country to burn from within. How do you do that? You send 20 million people across the border. Chinese and all these foreign countries are working in collusion. We're going to go to this part of the country, you go to that part of the country, you go to that part of the, and when we say go, we're going to start attacking and doing things in these areas, and just, it's coming. It's coming, folks. You just don't know it. And you're sitting in your comfy chair and you're thinking it's not going to happen. Here, it's coming. WHO chief argues countries not to close borders. Here he goes. Tedros asking countries not to close their borders. This is a microvirus that expands and attacks people through being somewhat close to them, or coughing in your hand and touching, and then somebody coming and touching that same area. Here's a TV show. I forget what it's called, where they tested basic things of life and whether they were fact or fiction. I wish I could remember the name of it. It was on the History Channel, I think. And they did one on colds and so forth. Now, the guy that was playing cold, they used some kind of dye, and he drank it or something like that. So as he was playing sick and everything, he would fake sneeze or real sneeze, and they would show the projection of the stuff coming out and where it would land on the tables and chairs and stuff in a meeting, and cough, and how the same stuff got, or how he would cough into his hand and then shake his hand, and then through a camera later they could go back to the person and see that the bacteria had got onto their hand and so forth. It's pretty amazing. I'm surprised the health organizations didn't use that in figuring out how to prevent COVID, because that's how it spreads. WHO chief confident China's epidemic prevention and control ability. January 28th. This is 2020, folks. So, Tedros and the World Health Organization was a prime, what would you call it? A prime contributor to the spread of the COVID-19 virus, in my opinion. You could think I'm nuts. I don't know if this is going to work on YouTube. They're probably going to block this video, but I don't know. All you got to do is look right there, folks. I gave you the webpage. A lot of this stuff is, like I said, right on the UN or the World Health Organization websites. You can go look at this stuff for yourself. Toxic cocktail. Panel delivers harsh verdict on the world's failure to prepare for a pandemic. Report proposes major overhaul of health systems to fight future threats. Organization WHO. Pandemics pose a potential exponential threat to humanity and must be elevated to the highest level, writes the author. I think this is the author who's writing the recommendation to what the World Health Organization will include in their pandemic treaty. This spits it out right here. In my opinion, Biden can say, you know what? Look at this. The World Health Organization, one of the most prestigious health organizations with the most prestigious doctors and most prestigious proof of medicine and so forth, is saying that it's a potential external threat to humanity, and we must elevate to the highest level of response or action to supposedly prevent the spreading of the virus. That's exactly what the Senate and the Idaho state, or the states that have filed an appeal or filing a motion with the federal courts to stop this treaty from being in effect in the United States. That should scare you right there, because that's the trigger point where the World Health Organization, for any whim, meaning why or this, could come in. What about false data? Do you think it's beyond a political party to create false data of a virus or something here happening in the United States? I would like to think that's not possible. But in today's state of mind here in this country, I wouldn't push it past them. So they create a false narrative, a false virus, if you would say, confusing the current COVID virus with or could be a flu virus. We have all these people going to the hospital. We don't know what it is. It'd take a lot of collusion, but it's not impossible, I don't think, in this country anymore for something like that to happen. Where is the trust? They totally lost my trust. I was 100% belief in our medical system in my younger days. Today, not so much. Independent panel, main report of accompanying report. So if you go here, you can look at the report, I think. That's coming in. It's in 3 sections. The world together, the intergovernmental negotiating body to draft and negotiate a HUE convention agreement or other international instrument on pandemic prevention, preparedness, and response. So I got it here for you folks. You can just go look at this stuff. I think this is a real threat to America. The United Nations funding by country, I think I already showed you that. So here's just more information on that. Permanent members, which I said here, there's 15 on the council, but only 5 have a real voting power. China, France, the Russian Federation, used to be the Soviet Union, the United Kingdom, and the United States. So here are the countries that are currently represented there. And then I have this. I wanted to see who was on the World Health Organization's council board or whatever. And so this was this was kind of weird. Islamophobia, Islamophobia. Not really. I'm looking at some connections. I'm looking at connections, not just because she's Arab or comes from an Arab country. And that's not what I'm really looking at to some aspect. But what is going on right now with Hamas and Israel? And I'm going to talk about the Durban Treaty here, declaration, in a minute, I think. Real short, just bring that back up. And if you don't remember what that is, I'll tell you. But if you go back and you look at, I think, episodes 2 or 3, maybe 4 episodes ago, you'll see something about the Durban. The Durban problem. Anyway, this person is the chair. I can't say her name. I'll not even try. Officers of the executive board of the World Health Organization. So she comes from a country called Qatar. Not a big deal. I could care less, right? I could care less, if it was Saudi Arabia, if it was possibly Iraq, if it was Egypt, if it was the Sudan, if it was Ethiopia, if it was almost any other Arab country other than Iran and maybe Syria, I'd be all right. Maybe that's the prejudice side of me. It is Islamophobia. No. Do you know Qatari support for Hamas? Qatar has been the key financial supporter of the Palestinian militant organization Hamas, transferring more than $1.8 billion to Hamas over the years. In the consultation with the United and Israeli governments, $30 million were transferred monthly to Hamas, according to a Qatari official interviewed by Der Spiegel, which is a German newspaper, I believe. Got that out of Wikipedia. Again, you got to take that into consideration. I didn't really dig any deeper, but I knew that Qatar was a financier of Hamas. Not necessarily is that bad, but it's another beacon of light. You need to watch this person because of that and the decisions she's making as the chair of this committee. The others, I do have that list there here too. Dr. Sabin, I didn't really look at her. Rwanda, I believe that's in Africa. Suzuki's from Japan. Not a big thing there. And maybe I should have been looking at Suzuki. Maybe he's a problem too. I don't know. I don't know where half these or any of these people come from. Timor, I think it's in Africa. I could be wrong. Could be Asia. Paraguay, South America, and Slovenia, which used to be an old Soviet Union republic, but it's now free. I think it might actually be part of NATO now. I could be wrong, but I think it might be. So really no big issues with that, but this one just set up a red flag. Not because she's from Qatar in and of itself, but because what Qatar has been doing with Hamas. Terrorism, that sends up a red flag in my mind that, hey, that's why I'm not really looking at any of these guys, right? Africa, Asia, I think it's Asia or Africa, I don't remember. South America, and then Europe. So anyway, take that as for a grain of salt. I just thought it was kind of interesting that you had somebody from Qatar and somebody in the general council of the WHO is from Ethiopia, and China is really pushing there quite a bit. All right, so here's the Durban Declaration, brought that back 23 years of basically race baiting through the use of NGOs worldwide. An NGO is a non-governmental organization trying to get governments to police race stuff in a country. I think they have to be part of the process. If you go to certain countries like China, I hate to say it, they block freedom of speech, they block freedom of religion, they block a lot of the things that we in the United States and free countries per se in the world take for granted. It's done. It doesn't happen there. Countries like I think the Scandinavian countries, if you really look at maybe Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Finland, those are probably the most, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but in my mind, they're the most true democratic countries in the world. They're relatively small in population. The people there have a lot of freedoms they take for granted, similar to the United States. I think they have more say because of the smallness of the country as population-wise. The democratic process could actually work there slightly better. I think they've had issues over the past because I think they've been totally left-guided, allowing a lot of foreigners into their countries that don't want to become Scandinavian in any way, part of that country, that bring in their own culture and so forth. It has started to divide and rip apart some of those countries up there. And there's something to be said for that. When you want to destroy a nation, there's no better way to destroy it. And you could look at that through the Roman Empire. You could probably look at that through the Mongol Empire. You could probably look at that through several of the Chinese dynasties and so forth. Nothing that will rip apart a country more than bringing in a bunch of people that don't agree with what the country stands for in its cultures and traditions. You rip it apart, and then you don't really have a country anymore. So there you go. So the Durban Declaration, which has been a failure on race, and I hate to say it, but the whole Durban Declaration is nothing but a racist documentation that was created or founded or developed in Tehran, Iran, another terrorist organization. Here's my Islamophobia. I don't really have a distrust. I know through past watching political events around the world, especially in Iran, I heard just the other day that probably 70% of that country would choose to be a democratic society. So I have nothing against the Arab people What I have an issue against is their governments, their tyrannical governments that suppress, lock, torture, destroy, kill, maim its citizens. And I don't care which country that is. I feel about the same for the Chinese government as I do for the Iran government. I feel about the same for those two as I do for the Russian people. I think if they had a choice, they'd rather be free too. And Putin is a tyrant, and he is a dictator. I'm sorry to say it. He kills his political opponents without disdain. He just does it, and the country doesn't rise up against him, and perhaps it should. So with that said, I think I'm pretty much done. We have a lot to worry about. The United Nations has failed Israel in its right to protect itself from Hamas and Hezbollah in the Gaza and Lebanon, who were unprovocably attacked on October 7th, 2023 by Hamas, which is funded by Qatar. And Iran. Not that she has anything to do with that, but I would like to have a conversation with her about it. Anyway, it reflects on and memorializes the Iran's terrorist regime aircraft crash of their president. Yeah, if you watched the news over the last couple of days, Israel was really upset and has the right to be. Why our government would offer the people of Iran. This guy was called the butcher in Iran. And he didn't get it because he was truly a butcher. He killed animals and they ate the meat that he butchered. He killed people, hundreds of them, thousands of them, hundreds of thousands of them for his own political purpose and religious beliefs. And he was doing that. He's doing that in Gaza. He's doing that in Israel. He's doing it all over the world. Islamophobia, you call it what you will. The guy is just a terrorist. And why you would celebrate him in any way. I actually watched on television last night on a newscast where I'm not sure exactly it was in some public square, some public house, where there was the Senate or the House in the United States, Congress, or whether it was in a state assembly or somewhere like that. I didn't see where it was at, but somebody there was definitely giving kind of like a Christian type prayer for this person, and that's fine. It's not negatively bad in any way to us, and it's probably a good Christian thing to do. But I could just see the disdain on the Iranian people, or the government, most likely, not the people. People probably don't care and thought it was nice. But the government disdain. All we want to do is kill you, Christian. Just kill you. That's their motto. The destruction of America. That includes everybody here, all of us, all of us Americans, and those that have come here, the 20 million that have come across our border. You are now, whether you believe it or not, enemy of Hamas, Iran, Hezbollah, and those organizations, because you just came here. They don't care what race you are or religion you are. You're just a terrorist to them, and they want to execute and get rid of us. All right, so what are my thoughts on the World Health Organization? Oh, it's a scary thing. And I know the good side of me says, this is not real. The World Health Organization just wants to help us. And maybe at that level, maybe it's somewhat true at that level in the World Health Organization. But seeing the manipulation of the World Health Organization from China and possibly other countries along the way over the last few years, I don't think we could trust them. I'm not willing to trust a world organization that is politically swayed for the benefit of one's country or one's financial gain. Not to say Tedros is getting any money directly from China, but our president and his son are, and his brother are getting money from China and other places in the world. And I would love to believe that could never happen in the United States. In my younger days, maybe 30 years ago, I would fully believe that. But after living my life of almost 62 years now, and seeing what has happened through those years, and how we have transitioned from a country in basically civil war in the 1960s and early 70s, through a country of prosperity and loving and caring and giving and generosity and expansion and growth and giving and helping the world. We're not perfect in any means and way, but if you want to know what country's been the greatest light on the hill, it's been this country. And now where I see it, as Obama said, we're just 5 days away from transforming America. And the transformation has not been good for us, the American citizens. And if it's not good for us, then it's not good for the world. Because this is the last bastion of freedom, the only really bastion of freedom in the world. And if this place goes, it's going to be 1,000 years or more before anything like this pops up again. If humanity survives. If we survive. Kind of scary. I don't know what we're going to talk about next week, but I think we're done for this week. Thank you so much if you spent all this time with me and listening to me. I would encourage Biden not to sign. I would tell the House and the Senate not to ratify the World Health Organization treaty. I would not sign it. I would tell them not to sign it as part of the United States. The World Health Organization has failed. The United Nations has failed. I would, in fact, if I was president, start to reduce our funding of the United Nations. I would cut it substantially in half, or I wouldn't pay any more than any other country, China, or any other country. And we need to really have a watchdog on the United Nations. It is not our friend. I don't think it's the friend of the world. It has all these persons in it that may think they're doing a good thing or the right thing. And in fact, they're just making things worse. And the Durban Declaration is a prime example of that. It's spewing and creating more racism in the world than it's taking away. And the United Nations, if they want to prove to me and prove to the world that they do care about humanity, that is the first thing in my mind they should get rid of, that I know of. I mean, there might be other things. I just haven't seen them yet. But the Durban Declaration definitely needs to be banished, cut off, stopped. And they need to reformulate that whole process. Going in and trying to stop racism, I think, is a noble venture. I think so. I think Martin Luther King was right on there. It's not the color of your skin, but it's the content of your character. I heard something about reparations going on in Boston, I think, which was never a slave state. Why do you need reparations? And nobody alive today ever lived during the time of slavery in this country. If we had people that were still alive from 1863, I would say, okay, I could see possibly doing reparations for those people, yeah. But there's nobody left. And you, lady, have never been a slave in your life. And you dress better, and you have a better looking car than me, and probably live in a nicer house. So go away and live your life, and let everybody else enjoy the freedoms that this country hopefully is going to continue to have in the future. Make your own self by what you do and who you are, and not take a handout from somebody and something. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, don't know what I'm going to talk. Maybe I'll talk about that next week. It's going to be whatever pops up. and hopefully it won't be a 2-week event. I was actually going to talk about something else, women's basketball and Caitlin Clark, and I'm in Las Vegas, so we have the world's number one female basketball team here. So I want to talk about that and all, and maybe I will. I don't know, get around it to some point. But I know there's things I need to talk about with the elections coming up. So anyway, you guys have a great week. Stay out of trouble. We'll talk to you next time. And this is Dave Coram with The Truth is Simple, and sometimes it hurts. Take care.